not be more honored and privileged to introduce you to Chuck Davis, CEO, protege, and parent of swagbucks.com. He's got an unbelievable resume, and you're going to really enjoy, hearing from Chuck. He also serves as venture partner for Technology Crossover Ventures, where he evaluates late-stage internet investments. Chuck is a highly respected internet entrepreneur. He has led several well-known companies to great places, each time leaving the brand in a better place than when he arrived, and that is really Chuck's signature. Chuck started his career in publishing before joining his first digital venture as the first president of e-commerce for the Walt Disney Company in LA. During his tenure at Disney, he launched the highly successful DisneyStore.com, DisneyVacations.com, and ESPNStore.com. After Disney, Chuck became president and CEO of Shopzilla, also known as BizRate.com. And many of us who are the seasoned veterans in the industry remember BizRate very, very well. He led the company to become the largest, most profitable, and fastest growing comparison shopping site online. Shopzilla was acquired by E.W. Scripps Company in 2005. But Chuck wasn't done yet. Chuck's never done. Next, he landed at Fandango as its chairman and CEO, where he built the entertainment website to become the nation's top moviegoer destination before it was acquired by Comcast Corporation. And you're really going to enjoy all of Chuck's keynote presentation, but I think you're going to really enjoy the part about Fandango. If you connect on LinkedIn, and Chuck does invite you to do that, all 200 of you, you'll see that he describes himself as a director and mentor. This could not be truer. In addition to his day job, Chuck invests in the business leaders of tomorrow. He is so committed. He serves as an entrepreneur in residence at Harvard Business School, where he meets with students representing over 50 startups annually. And he's a trustee emeritus for the Brown University Corporation. Chuck was voted, this is why I have to read because I could not possibly cite all of this. Chuck was voted as Entrepreneur of the Year in 2004 by Ernst & Young for Los Angeles International Chairman of the Young Presidents Organization for 2012 and 2013. And most recently, he was voted into the Los Angeles Venture Association Hall of Fame. In just a minute, you'll find out why Chuck is not only successful, but also truly inspirational. Key questions he asks himself are, since life is so unpredictable, how will you make your mark? How will you enhance your brand? We're going to hear great stories about how he has answered these questions so far. Please join me in giving a really warm welcome to Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Thank you for that intro. I think it just means I'm an old person because there was so much going on there. So we heard there's a lot of change. There's a lot of change going on in the industry. And there's a lot of change going on in every industry. So I thought one way to address change was to kind of take a look back at different journeys I've seen along the way and what has changed and what has been learned from that, all in the hope of taking our personal brand and our business brand to a better place than we left it. So we start off with my first job out of college. I was in charge of the insert cards that fell out of Life magazine. Now, a lot of you don't even remember what Life magazine was, but to our grandparents, it was how they found out what went on. The circulation must have been around 10 million a week. It was a weekly publication, and television basically put it out of business. I joined the monthly Life that they tried to rebirth afterwards, and that's where I realized I had 3 people that were in my group that each had tenures of 10 to 35 years with Time Inc., and I was the rookie. And what was I going to do to make a difference? First, I had to learn about business. I knew nothing about business. So I had this little insert card, and I had to figure out how to get an offer. Because if you're trying to close a sale, what will you do? Maybe you'll discount, Chris Darvit. Maybe you won't, right? But I couldn't discount because the advertisers all flocked from the magazine to television, so they go, you can't discount. So I came up, I got an artist to design a Tiffany box, and it said, free mystery gift with your life subscription. And that was my first research test, because it indexed to 250, and the company gave me a computer to start figuring out how to make more money in other ways. But that was taking a little risk, because that went against the whole schema. So I then moved on. They put me on Sports Illustrated, and this was my dream from childhood, how to end up on SI. And SI was much bigger in the 80s than it is today, because ESPN was just being born. So at SI, I was able to do my first brand study. My boss really didn't know anything about sports, but she had good intuition that the marketing we were doing to find consumers was not in sync with what we were selling and what the editor was producing were two different things. We were showing football, we were showing boxing, we were showing all these great sports, and he was showing tennis, okay? So people signed up, but they didn't renew, and our P&L was getting a lot worse. So we did a brand study, and incidentally, you're going to hear about it. I've now done 5 brand studies in 5 different companies. Okay, so I understand research as a business person too. And long story short, football, the NFL football, was liked by 98% of the readers, and tennis was liked by 2% of the readers. Okay, that was mind-opening to everyone, because we ended up getting a new editor. But for me, I now had to figure out, now that we had the right alignment, how are we going to sell more subscriptions? So one day, you see Michael Jordan in the middle picture there. I call up the NBA, and Blockbuster Videos hadn't been started yet. And those of you who remember the VCRs, you set your television to channel 4, you had blank tapes, you recorded shows. There were no rentals, there were no owned tapes. And I said, why don't we have tapes? Like pre-recorded, like let's get a Michael Jordan 50-minute tape free with your subscription. So I call up the NBA, and I go, can you hook me up with your video division? They go, we don't really have a video division. No one's ever ordered a video before. And they put some guy on the phone, and I explain what I'm trying to do. And he goes, well, what are you thinking? And I said, I'm thinking about buying 400,000 videos from you. And that guy became famous, ended up running 2 public companies. They formed the NBA video division the next day. And now I've created my own crack habit, because what am I going to do to beat that? I did a Muhammad Ali video, but now I needed a football phone, right? So anyone remember the football phone? It's a clamshell, and there's the old commercial for it. Incidentally, this is a dynamic time in television history, because that's an old television that only went up to channel 13. And what happened while I was at Sports Illustrated, Time Warner Cable came out, and they had 40 channels. And it was triple what they had. So that was a big deal, because I went to ESPN and TNT and TBS and BET, and I went and just bought up lots of 2-minute slots, because they had no programming. So I took all these spots to put on football phone commercials, and now the circulation got even higher. And now the problem is, what do you do after a football phone? Well, we did a sneaker phone next. And that wasn't so good, because each of these premiums got away from the core concept, that a video of sports is better than a sneaker. Because sneaker doesn't mean you like reading Sports Illustrated. It means you like being an American, because everyone has sneakers. So we move on. That study really helped, and when I left, I went to TV Guide. Now, TV Guide, this is another scary thing, just like, I don't know how I got all these magazines that were so scary. Life, you know, then went out of business. TV Guide at its heyday in 1969, and I wasn't there in 1969, but 1969 was in 20 million homes in the U.S., and there only were 60 million homes in the U.S. Now, you have to remember that television. We only went up to channel 13, and most cities had 4 channels. They went off at 11:30 at night. The national anthem played, and then there was just snow till 7 a.m. Literally snow, okay? So why did 1 out of 3 houses in America need a guide to figure out what was on 4 channels for 16 hours a day? It was a bizarre concept. So I go there. The circulation now is 14 million while I'm there, And of course, I've now learned about sports, so the big issue they have is fall preview. You remember that. But there are so many copies they're printing. To get 14 million, they got to put them on newsstand. So they're printing about 18 million. It takes 17 days to print the magazine. There are so many copies. So you can never have a sports cover because it'd be out of date. So I wrestled with how do we figure that? And I said, you know what? I know today, on January 26th, that football season is going to start in the second Sunday in September. So you can do a fall preview issue, and you see the NFL Now. That's the fall preview issue and for football. And that became the #2 bestseller for the magazine. And on the other side of fall preview, you see Rose Bowl Fever. On December 4th, you know who's going to play on New Year's Day. You have 27 days to print those covers. So not only did we print them, we printed 28 different covers, one for every NFL city, and that's how it became a great hit. And all I'm trying to say is, in whatever job you're in, try and break the mold. Don't let them tell you we can't do this, we can't have sports. It doesn't work. Because it does work, and those are the #2 and 3 bestsellers. So we did a brand survey, again, at TV Guide. What's going on? This is even scarier than life, because what it showed was that people were literally dying. New people were coming in, but more people were going out. They were dying. And the circulation, therefore, was dropping. So I had to think again. Now, this is an example of Publishers Clearinghouse or American Family Publishers, which were our 2 biggest stamp sheets. You usually, if you wanted to win the $10 million, you'll see it after the Super Bowl. They ring the doorbell of some elderly lady, and they go, congratulations, we're the prize-winning committee, and they present a $10 million oversized check. And she doesn't win unless she buys a certain number of magazines. At least no purchase is necessary, but at least she thinks she's got to order it. So TV Guide, being the biggest magazine, was the only one that got 3 stamps. Sports Illustrated and Time got 2. Everyone else got 1. And it looks like, I told my boss, this is like what do you need me for? Like, well, oh my gosh, there's so much to market here. Is it 4 payments of $4.99 or $4.97? Is it, and what is the order to put them in? Well, the order was small, medium, large, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. But as soon as I flipped it, that other than Mendy, we all read left to right, okay? So why were they putting the best offer on the right? The 3-year offer, the 1-year offer, whatever it was. By flipping the offer, I got 35% of the subscribers to stick for 2 or 3 years. Because I did this in renewals, I did it everywhere, and I just switched the order from right to left to left to right. And well, you know what that did? That took the subscriptions from 7 to 9 million of a dying brand. And because if someone's literally dead, you have about, as a family member, about 100 things on your checklist to fix. And one of them is not, I got to call TV Guide and end that subscription. They just let it run, and we were sending copies out. I don't know who got them, but it made the P&L look really good. In fact, when I went to TV Guide, the cash flow had been growing by 10 million a year. And they go, if you do that, Chuck, we're going to give you a nice bonus. And I go, 10 million, it seems so quaint. Like, how about 50 million in the first year? Because I knew I was going to flip the order. And I know how Americans go. And say this is how they go on the internet, too. Left to right, top to bottom. So that helped inform me when the internet came. And long story short, I grew up by 51 million in that first year. And that got me an extra $10,000 that I had to argue for, even though I showed them the letter. It's unbelievable, like the worst negotiation ever for me. Okay, so we move on. I then take a risk. I go to the Wild Wild West, because while I'm at TV Guide, Netscape goes public, okay? And when they go public, that now means you don't have to just have AOL, CompuServe, or Prodigy, because those internet service providers had their own content, but they were cul-de-sac. You could not leave and go to the web. You needed a browser. Internet Explorer hadn't been invented yet. There wasn't a Chrome. Google hadn't even been invented yet. So while we had Netscape, all of a sudden, all these internet companies needed employees, but it was a new industry, and there were 0 employees, except in Columbus, Ohio, for CompuServe. So somehow I got the call, because the logic was, one of them told me, listen, if you can get eyeballs to a magazine nobody needs, you probably could get eyeballs to our website. So next thing I knew, I was calling Gateway Computer, 1-800-GATEWAY, to order a computer because I didn't have one, yet I now had 5 job offers in the computer industry, and I had to respond and act like I knew what was going on. And so I ended up, actually 4 were venture-backed and 1 was Disney, and Michael Ovitz was there for 11 months as president before he left with his $103 million severance package. And I had to interview with him, and he goes, Chuck, who knows if this internet thing is a fad or not? If it's a fad, we'll find you another job at Disney. And I didn't hear the venture capitalists saying they'd find me another job, and their companies went way up and then crashed and were out of business like all within 3 years. So I don't know how to time things like that, and I don't even understand technology. So Disney helped me. I went in, I launched DisneyStore.com and Disney Vacations, and for Euro Disney, the cruise line. And while I was there, they bought ESPN and they bought InfoSeek, and next thing I knew, I had an auction site auctioning off the Dumbo ride, and you know, I was selling everything. And so that's just how it was in those early days. But what was really important was this was my last stop in a big company. And in a big company, you could spend marketing and you could try things and you can learn, and they don't even know you're trying things, and they don't even know you're spending their money. And all of a sudden, like, I've got great knowledge, and wouldn't that knowledge be good if I went to a small company, because now I wouldn't have to waste the venture capitalist funds. I don't know if it was thought out that well, but it was thought out that I needed a bigger platform to figure it out. So I went to BizRate, and this was an interesting one because they had $1 million of revenue, and after I signed on, the founder was so happy that he brought in a hired gun CEO. He went out drinking and had a terrible accident that night, but survived, but he was just happy. So I came into that, and I didn't realize we were almost out of money. So always ask to see the balance sheet before you sign on at a startup. So we had to hit the road as soon as he got out of the county jail so that we could go raise money, and we did. And we were able to raise $50 million at a $700 million valuation on $1 million of revenue. So it was a very odd moment in time, and we closed it 1 month after the bubble burst in the year 2000. So that too was interesting. Of course, I pissed away 49 of the $50 million till I found the business model. But let's talk about what BizRate is. BizRate was a research company, business ratings that the merchants needed to know. Who can we trust? The consumer wanted to know from the merchant, and they wanted the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, which was BizRate. Tell us what you thought of this merchant. And there were these little invites at the end of the e-commerce flow on thousands of sites on the web, and it built our brand. And that's how BizRate started. But an interesting happened along the way. I changed the business model to a comparison shopping site, and it was a strange time. It was a strange time for comparison shopping because we were still on dial-up, like high speed hadn't come yet. So when you looked at how people shopped online, this is now what, around the year 2000. If you look at it, first off, most goods were bought by men, and we all know that's not how the world works, okay? So why was the internet 63% male purchases in the year 2000? And most of the purchases were made around lunchtime every day in rolling time zones. So you knew lunch had something to do with it. And what that meant was the T1 high-speed lines were at the office, and there were more men at the office. And that's why men were buying online. So the one thing I learned from Disney is think like a consumer, think like a consumer. Men might buy houses, I'm generalizing, women fill them, okay? And actually home and garden became the #1 category on BizRate. And next thing I knew, we were putting in linens and sheets and cashmere sweaters and scarves, and we had to rebuild the whole search engine to handle all these women products because they don't catalog as well as a Samsung DVD player, or VHS player, I guess we would call it at the time. So it changed our whole business. It went to 5 ace women from 5 ace men in a period of 4 years. So that was interesting, and that was an interesting brand study that we started here because when we launched in the UK, we no longer had business ratings. We had never done it in London. We were launching comparison shopping. So for launching comparison shopping in the UK, why would we call the company BizRate? There were no business ratings. So we had to come up with a name. This was the most antagonistic internal discussion ever. We had 24 names to look at. The founders really liked Shopzilla. The women hated it. It reminded them of Godzilla. But the research showed that the name stuck. Like you can't, in unaided awareness, Shopzilla you remember. Shopping.com, which was a real brand people forgot. It was too descriptive, like book.com or hotels.com. And so it had a little of descript, but it had a little personality. So we had a logo, and the logo was all capital letters, and the women hated it. And the designer said, well, women like lowercase letters. Try that. And soften the Z a little. It's a little too pointy, like Zorro. So we did that, and next thing I know, the women liked it. Now the men didn't like it because it was more effeminate. So the men liked a shopping cart popping a wheelie with flames coming out. Reminded them of Godzilla, and that they hate shopping and want to get in and out of the store real fast. Okay? So what's our next slide here, Sarah, on Shopzilla? So we had a lot of fun with Shopzilla. Oh, so we sold that to EW Scripps in 2005. And on my way out, I became chairman for a while. And in the same building in Santa Monica is Fandango. And it's passed over. The bankers were always skipping Fandango, coming to see us up at Shopzilla. And Fandango just had 37 employees. It was a little thing. It was unclear if it was going to make it. It just was kind of a scary thing, but they had great snacks for the employees. I had great lunches. The CEO and I would go up and down. And next thing I know, they made me the chairman of that company. So I went down there. I'm chairman of both companies. In fact, in between was the landlord's floor, and they gave me a permanent office there because they were so happy that I helped fill the whole building. But there were only 37 employees, and on my first day, 2 engineers come in to see me. Now, I got all these tests I want to do, okay? Well, let me talk about the 5-page order form just to be in sync here. So it took 5 pages to order a movie ticket. And I go, you got to be kidding me. Like, who wants to pay an extra $1 for a ticket anyway? Like, I don't, you know? And now you're going to put me through 5 pages when Amazon is 1? So I told the team, I don't care if it takes a month, because the architecture wasn't set up to test. And you probably have that in a lot of your companies. The IT department isn't big enough or whatever. But that's okay, okay? So how do we get that page to 4 pages or 3 pages? Okay? Well, they said, we'll give you 3.5. If the credit card's on file, it's 3, and if not, we got to do 4 because we need a page to take the credit card. And that alone, just switching the number of pages, the tickets went up 52% overnight. And I go, oh my gosh, it's March, like Harry Potter's coming out in May, like whoever the CEO is going to be in this new company, or it was an old company, but they had me as chairman look for a new CEO. I go, he's going to look great, and he doesn't even know that I just like gave it to him. You know? So I quickly went to the board and said, I got to be the CEO. You know, I think I see good things coming. And next thing I knew, the thing just took off. But on that first day as CEO, the 2 engineers sit on my couch and they go, hey, Chuck, we've got a little issue. We are working on a secret project with Apple. And I go, okay, well, can you tell me about it? No, we signed an NDA. I go, okay, well, is it a good project? We don't know. Is it a bad project? So I'll get you out of it. We don't know that either. Do you think it's worth investing? Let it just go for a little, and we'll get back to you. I'm going, this is the strangest meeting I've ever had. My own employees can't tell me what they're working on. They're not working for me. It was the strangest thing. And then 6 months later, Steve Jobs is at Macworld showing the first iPhone when we all had BlackBerries, and he's buying movie tickets on Fandango. The App Store didn't launch for another year. Well, we were the first app. It wasn't even called an app. And that's what my guys were working on, and they didn't even know they were working on it. They were just making the code and handing the baton in some dark alley, and Apple took it down the rest of the alley. That changed the whole business also. Incidentally, there are these changes that come, like Like at Disney, I was head of shopping and travel, and then they invent the word e-commerce, and the toughest decision we had to make is the E capitalized, the C capitalized, or is there a hyphen? Okay, that was really tough. Same thing here. We didn't know, like, should we be helping Apple or not, and as you know, it all played out. So Fandango ended up being we did a brand study at Fandango. Should we do more tickets, right? Should we do tickets of other events, sporting events, concerts, or should we have entertainment red carpet news? And the brand study said yes and yes. The tickets bombed because they're a commodity, but the entertainment news went through the roof. The ads from the content made more money for Fandango than the ticket sales did, okay? So that's why you got to break some glass. You got to test norms. You've got to use research to find those nuggets. If I didn't do those brand studies in each of these companies, I don't think I would have been able to figure that out. So, well, that's really the end of the Fandango chapter, but that was a pretty fun one too. And I joined Protégé a couple years ago, and you know, that book's being written. So I'm not going to tell you anything about that because these stories always are better with hindsight. So we have no idea on that today. So what are the key lessons that I want to end this on, and then we'll open up and have a few questions. The first is, someone told me once, Chuck, as CEO, you rent your job at the behest of the board of directors, okay? Well, if you stop and think about that, we all rent our jobs, right? And we're all going to pass the baton to someone. It might be after 2 years, it might be after 30 years, but we all hand the baton, and hopefully whoever we hand it to takes us to newer heights, right? So that's one thing. How are we going to take things to newer heights, leave things in a much, this is point 2, leave things in a much better position than we got them, right? How will each of us make our mark? Because when I did all the stuff, I had no idea I was going to make a mark, right? You have no idea. But you got to try a few things to figure it out. So the third thing is, I like to say the breaking some glass syndrome, and that is if you go in as a paper pusher and look to conform, they'll enjoy your company, but you won't break any glass, and I believe you got to break some glass. Okay? So that's it. Thank you for your time, and we'll take some questions. Okay? I think we have 2 microphones, and we have a few minutes to take some questions. And if not, I'll linger afterwards. Yes?
When the team was not ready to break that glass, or they, you know, just thought you were out there somewhere?
Well, I think they thought I was out there somewhere in a lot of these situations. So I think you have to have a measured breaking your glass test, right? We're all into testing. This is the testing industry, right, with samples. So find a way to validate, I think there's something here, and let me explore this a little. Right? So I'd say measured risk would be the way I'd answer it. That they thought I was crazy, but like in Life magazine, they didn't care. I was just the 22-year-old guy in the corner. So I go, I'm going to do something that won't even have your brand in the photo. It's going to have a Tiffany box that says, we're going to get rid of everything in your warehouse, and you don't have to worry about it. You've written it all off anyway. I found the way to get rid of everything in the warehouse. So it was like a double win. It indexed well, and they cleared out the warehouse of 37,000 books called Our Magnificent Land. That was just a disaster. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
You seem to have a knack for the early stages of change. Can you speak to your intuition in that space? It seems that and you've had a lot of chapters, but that area around identifying change and then from that change, acting on it.
Yeah. Okay, well, first off, I forgot to mention that if this were baseball, I'm the middle reliever. I'm not the founder. I'm not the starter. If you think I have a lot of change, talk to a founder, right? We still have our founder, Joseph Garowitz of Protégé. Those guys, everything they did was change. Everything they did. I come in, measured change. Some of your things work. Let's add some best-in-class practices, and the bridge The bridge to me is the highest V curve. I ended up in the middle reliever because no one wants to be a middle reliever. It's not like I studied how do you be a middle reliever. No one wants to be a middle. Everyone wants to be a founder, or everyone wants to be the guy after it's acquired. I'm running that group division, right? And no one wanted to be in the middle, so somehow they squeezed me here. So the only way I could hold on to my job was to test different things and keep it rolling. But remember, measured risk. Measured risk, right? There are a lot of analytics in this room. And there are a lot of analytics behind 5 brand studies that there was an inkling we got to try something a little different here. Another question. Yes?
So to bring it back to sample,
Yes.
we feel like, or it seems like we're ready for a middle reliever right now because we started online sample in the late 90s. We're kind of doing it the same way we've been doing it for all that time and engaging opinions in the same way. Where do we go?
First off, I've seen this movie before. I was on the industry board for 11 years of shop.org, which is, I guess, the affiliate retail e-commerce industry, and there were 200 in the room, and there are now 5,000 in the room, and we're only down to 6 venues in the US that can hold us. Okay, so I've seen it, and I think you are at that same point where the inflection is coming. And I think you also know there are many areas to be growing this industry too, right? Mobile is an easy one, GPS. There's just so much that's coming that might seem far-fetched today, but it really isn't. It really isn't. And there will be more that we don't know down the pipe because, I got the Apple Watch, and I'm now paying at Starbucks with my watch, right? And there have to be ways to, I made my senior team get Apple Watches, right? Because I don't want to be the last. Like, I fought that iPhone. It took me a while till I bought it. I had to do it because we had an app on it that wasn't called an app. And, and then they said a tablet, and I go, that's a dumb idea. Who would ever use a tablet? I have a tablet in my room, no PC. So how do we monitor things? Everyone's watching everything we're doing. It's all being tracked. So I think we're at the tip of the iceberg, and I don't know where it's going to go, but what an exciting industry. You should be very proud to be here in an industry that has a foundation, that has tried and true principles, but is also willing to have measured risk and sample new ways. Okay? Another question. If not, I can help us get back on schedule. How about that? Okay? Thank you very much.